Okay, so I'm trying to record this class, so recording this class. So thank you very much for joining. I will be sharing my screen now. Screen. Okay, yes. So yesterday we discussed form element, yes, the forms, HTML forms. All right. So we remember we talked about that the form actually starts with a form tag. It starts with a form tag, and the form tag is actually a peer tag. So it has an opening and a closing tag. All right. And within it, we have different type of elements in our form. We have the inputs that have different types. We have button, we have labels, we have text area, we have select, which is like the drop down. Yes. So we have these elements in forms, in HTML forms, right? And within the element, we remember we have some attributes that we define. Like for input, we have types, which can be multiple different type of types, and we have the name, which is important because that's what's going to be using to map the value. So when it's going to be sending, it's sending both the value and the name. That okay, the name for this, which is username. So for username, this is the value that the users have imputed. So we have value, but the value is either what the user imputes or we impute it from the backend. Assuming we want to send something to the user so that the user can see and modify, you can set the value for value. You can set something for value. And once the user input anything, it actually overrides what we've imputed here. The final thing that is going to take place, that is going to take present is whatever has been modified it into. And also we have attributes like required, which means that, okay, this particular form is supposed to be filled. When I'm sending it back, it shouldn't be empty. We have read only, which makes this particular text box to be disabled. So user can only see it, but they can't be able to type anything. They can modify it. They can modify the value. And if you remember, we mentioned that for the input type, we have different types. We have the type like text, which is more generic, would allow you to enter anything, both number and sequence, anything to the box. We have password. Password will allow you to enter anything, just that is hashed out. Everything you are typing in is going to be asterisk that is showing to the user. So nobody is seeing the password that you've imputed. And that's important to use when you're actually using for creating the password. We have file, which is for us to be able to actually select a file from your system or like a dialog. It's going to open a dialog box and then you'll be able to select the file that you want to send. So probably like in this case, probably the profile picture that you want to select. Oh, okay. I didn't mention color yesterday. I was trying to check on something. So there's actually color. This actually gives you a dialog where you can select color. It's okay. So when I open the I will run it again and show us what it looks like. I'm not sure if every browser supports it yet because I know it's not so recent, but it's still a bit recent. We have number. We have things like other ones like telephone, date. Date actually from browser enters it and gives you a drop down for you to select the date. So a lot of these things are actually dependent on the browser you are using. So the way browser interprets our code might be different from browser to browsers. Although most browser interprets HTML code almost the same way because it's the basics somehow, right? But display the way it's showed might be a bit different. There's we have text area. Okay, yes, I've mentioned text area before. So that's all about different type of inputs. There's actually two more type of inputs that we'll be talking about today. But before we go to that, let's just finish the revision of what we treated yesterday. So we move on to select, which is the drop down. So a typical drop down we have in the page is actually created with this select command. So select have an opening and closing is also a paired value. It's also a paired tag. So for us, let me give it a name. So the name is actually particularly its state in this case. And within that, we can have different drop downs because we're actually supposed to pick a value from the list of the drop down. So this each item of our drop down is called an option here. It's called an option in XML. And within an option, you have the option, then you have a value. The value is more of like what exactly does it represent. So when I'm sending something to when I'm sending the information that I've collected from the user, it's going to be sending whatever is the value that you define as value. And what is between the closing and opening and closing tag for option is what's going to be displayed to the user. So that's what we call the test. That's what's going to be displayed to the user, right? And within option in selected, we have like some attributes that we can actually add apart from value. We have disable, which typically makes it that you can actually select this particular option. You'll be able to you see it in drop down, but you can't select it. And we have selected. Selected is basically what has been selected. So when you're loading this page for the first time, if you pick anyone as selected, that's what's going to be selected in that drop down. You actually have been selected. By default, it picks the first value. Picks the first value by default, but if you pick selected should actually be only one, should be on only one of the option, no multiple, it should be on only one of them. And that one should be will be selected in our as the value of our drop down. Why do I use capital for this one? Right. So also we mentioned button. That for button we actually have three different types. We have the typical button that this one doesn't actually send out. It's just a button. You can actually attach some event to it that probably when this guy is click, you should do this thing in JavaScript. We see more use of it probably when we are doing a bit of JavaScript or something like that. But for submit automatically sends this value, everything we've imputed here to the back end and reset, clears of everything we've set and sets back to default as if we've not imputed anything. So let's see how does our page actually looks like. And again, let's just, I believe we still remember, but let's just click on it and see. So I've opened the page now. The HTML page that we've put the inform page. So remember, because we set a value for this one, that's why we have a value set for it. And you can't type anything. I can't put anything there because we set it as read only. So I skip placeholder. This second input field, we set up something called placeholder for it, which is what's showing in the background. The difference is once you start typing, the placeholder is actually not a value within it. It's just going to be showing in the background. And once you start typing, it actually moves out. Not like when you have a value. When you set a value, it's actually not it's going to be there, and you have to, if you want to change, you have to delete what's there and put another thing. So this color, we didn't treat color yesterday, so I was just playing around later on today because we didn't mention color. So colors allow you to have a drop down of color. So I can actually have a drop down. I can select a color. So when I actually select this, it's going to be sending the hexadecimal code for this particular guy. That's what the value will be. So we can actually see it. Let's see what the value is. Right. Okay, we're selecting a particular red. Let's select it. Okay. Yes, let's this color. Okay. So if you are sending this, let's go back to yesterday. I opened this inspect and show us what actually happens. What is being sent back? So if I send this one, submit this, I actually send the color as an hexadecimal code. I don't remember. I believe we still remember we mentioned this in like probably the third class where I mentioned that these actually represent RGP. RGP. So the first two code represents red, and they are hexadecimal. That's to base 16. So it's from 0 to F. F. And its two value is So in this case, FF. Oh, no, but in this case, actually CF. And then the second value represents the green RGB. Yes, so the second two value, the next two value represent the green. The last two represent blue. So the color we okay, it has wipe it off because of some dead. But the color we selected before was like a bit of red. So if we select the extreme red, let's just select the extreme red. Yeah, it's actually going to be FF. Yes, FF meaning the highest value in red. 00 for green, 00 for blue, like zero blue, zero just pure red. Right. That's just what color is. Yes. So that's by the way. So I think we can move on to this class. But before I move to this class, is there any question from an additional question from yesterday or something that wants us to also undo? I actually don't have a lot of thing planned out for today because the HTML class I'm actually going to be stopping it in the input in this form input. So there's not so much, and we've almost covered everything. So today might not be a long class. So I will actually want it to be more interactive. If you actually have more questions, so we can ask, and then I can answer that. So I didn't forget from you. I didn't forget your question about the inputs looking for mathematical formula. I'm going to actually um answer that question later on. But if you have another formula, if I have another question, I actually like us to ask now before you continue.
Okay, so thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, sir.
So I just want to ask a question now. We have been dealing with HTML. So, but everything we have learned so far, is it enough to build a website?
So to build a website, a static website now that is not really getting a data from the backend and some things, there is still the part of CSS needed. So you can actually use an HTML to build a website, fine. But the beautification, because today everything has become so sophisticated, and you want things to look so appealing to the users, not just the functionality. You need CSS. But in terms of functionality, that everything I want to be able to do in front end, you should be able to we'll be able to do everything with C sharp. Apart from interaction, when it comes to interaction, it's more of like, okay, when I click on one thing, I want this one to be dancing. When I type, for example, probably I want it to be like, oh, when I type 30 or when I pick this date of birth, I want this guy to populate to be this, which is the interaction part of it. That one is handled with Java. That one is handled with JavaScript. But the main functionality now, building the interface, putting everything you want to be able to put image where it should be able to collect information from the user, being able to create a table, being able to do something. All that we should be able to do it with HTML that we've covered. Yes.
All right, thank you. Thank you so much. So another question I have is so now we are dealing with writing the command and viewing the result on the browser. So what are the steps involved? So to put this on a maybe I don't know how to call it, maybe website or on internet like www dot in such a way
Okay.
that you can view it on Google, something like that.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So I get the question. So there is to be able to actually, the question is to be able to host this particular website that we've developed, right? So to be able
Exactly.
to
Yes, sir.
host it, you require one thing. The first one is domain name. You need to have a domain name. So the domain name itself is like the. So let me just bring up my own personal website here. Oh, I can't. Okay, it's not here. So the domain name is in my own case now is yomiolatunji.com. So that's the domain name. So there are websites that you can actually buy this from online. Most time you actually buy it probably for a year, 2 years. So I personally use Namecheap to buy this domain name from my own end to buy domain name. So that's the first thing. That one is just domain name, just domain name. It does. My point is something else. Then hosting the website itself that we've created, we have to host it. We have to now get a hosting platform. So there are different hosting platforms depending on the popularity of what you've done. Um, so what you've worked on here is just HTML, so you can host this one almost anywhere. HTML can be hosted almost anywhere. But if you have a backend now, probably you have a backend that communicates with database, saves the database, some things. So at that point, your requirement gets a little bit more complicated because now you need to have a database. So the hosting site I'm going to be paying for probably we have a database, or I have to buy a database separately. And then I now have to look at the language I'm using. Does the hosting screen actually support that language? So for example, if I built my application with C sharp, I need my hosting site to be able to support IIS. Right? If I build my backend with C sharp, I need to support IIS. But if it's just HTML, you don't actually have a special requirements for HTML. You don't have a special requirement for HTML itself. If it's just HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, that one, almost every hosting thing that's available will host that. But if you have come to do okay, C sharp now, you have to do that. You have to look for something that supports IIS. If you are hosting something like if my backend is written with PHP, then I probably need a hosting website that supports maybe a Linux-based hosting that supports like a one Apache, or what is they using PHP? Maybe like Apache shell that supports that for you to actually host your website on. So, but basically, what you need is two things: the domain name and a hosting site and a hosting platform to be able to host it, to be able to host the website. So I know we've all probably had a lot about cloud. You want to put it in the cloud. So the cloud itself is also a hosting platform, just that is a bit more, it gives you more flexibility in terms of what you can do. You can actually decide to buy instead of buying a self-hosting some, you can decide to buy like a system. So you storage on it, and then there you actually have to install everything you have per se on that, and then people can so you can do your installation, the setup by yourself. That's just different between cloud and the typical hosting website that you can use. Like there are some common hosting websites like Hostinga. Hostinga is common for people that do more of Linux based. There is, which one is common again? I used to use Roku before because Roku supports free hosting before, but in November they stopped a part of the free hosting part. They do it from form of a free hosting before. But there is also, because this is just HTML page, so this one you can actually see a lot of free something to host your free HTML. Let's just check. Free HTML hosting site. I know there's probably a lot that can even allow you to even know just the simple static page like HTML for free. I'm not sure if this one's offer free. What is what I'm seeing here? I don't think this one's offer free. Maybe they have a free package. I'm not sure. But I know GoDaddy is also a common one. The thing that I mentioned earlier, there's Bluehost, there's HostGator. I don't know these other ones. I don't know them. So, but you just need those two things, sha. Basically. That's it. That's all. I hope I answered the question.
Yes, sir. You answered the question. So, and the last question for now, so, is that now that we are working with source file, so in the process of launching the website on the hosting platform, so you as a developer, are you the one keeping the source file with you, or you still have to upload it maybe on cloud, or how do you deal with the source file you have?
So the source file is actually what you are uploading on the website. That's what you're actually uploading on the website or the website you're hosting on.
Mm.
So let me okay. So let me do a shall I do a quick show of how I do my own part, how I do my hosting, right? So the hosting itself, the hosting when you try to host, it's like they give you a drive on the system. So for example, this is my I actually use this website smarterasp.com to host my website, to host some of my websites. So what it looks like is this. Okay, let me go to the file. So they give you like a file, a location, a particular part on the system where you can actually now move all the source file. So for it, because of the way this particular website is, so for all the files, the source file, I actually move it here. If I go to www.roots, you can actually see. Okay, this particular website doesn't really they are so you won't see the HTML file for this particular one because of the way it was built. But assuming it's HTML, you have seen it HTML. The same way I'm seeing the .dll and .esv for here, you actually have seen the HTML. That the HTML that we have on our desktop, that's what will have been dropped in this particular location that they allow you to drop it into. Hello? Did you get me?
Yes, yes, I understand your point, sir.
Yes, yes.
Yes.
So I'm being able to drop it. There are different protocols that they actually allow. There is a protocol we call FTP, which is File Transfer Protocol. So for File Transfer Protocol, it's there are client applications that you can use to be able to do that. Something like, for example, you have Vilesira. Vilesira is an application from me that I used. Some key of leave this one. So Vilesira is an application for me that actually works based on FTP, not the typical HTTP. The transfer protocol happen like HTTP. So what happens is I connect to the server. They give me a protocol. That most time, if the hosting platform support FTP, which most we support, you have like the host name, you have your username and password that you're supposed to have, and the ports that is supposed to connect through, which I'm going to connect to. For example, that one I opened earlier is okay. So for example, this was pass the hosting stuff that they gave me. I connect to it, and once I'm connected to it, it actually shows that if I'm here, and then I can actually transfer everything from the other part is my laptop. This was from the server, and I can just move things around from it. So there's like this application that's supposed so that's file Zira. So there are other applications that people actually use to be able to do it. The Linux application, I can't really remember some of them right now. Okay. Is that fine? Is that fine?
Yeah, yeah, it's okay, sir. So,
Okay. All right. Thank you. Mm, okay. People use some pages. I'm trying to remember some self-hosting, some free hosting for front end, but I can't remember anyone now. If I remember, I actually mentioned it or dropped it in the chat, in the WhatsApp chat, if I remember. Okay, so going to today's class, I mentioned that there is the text box. There is the text box. No, so not text box. I mean checkbox. There's checkbox and there's radio that I want to treat. So for checkbox, to be able to actually add checkbox to our website, checkbox basically is more like if I have the list of options and I want to be able to select some of the options, like what they want, probably what's applicable, I can actually have a checkbox in my list for them to select whatever is applicable to them. So, and to be able to do that, this command for it is actually just a type under input. So let's do an example. This one. So for checkbox, I'm going to be adding a new HTML, a new row to our table. Just remove the value in the label. Remove this guy. So let's see what would be a checkbox. Let me say interest. So interest, so the first let everything you're interested in. So for that part, for this particular scenario, you can have multiple checkbox and you want people to be able to actually select one. So let's even see what is a single checkbox looks like. So checkbox, to be able to add a checkbox, you have its input, or in this case, the type is equals to checkbox. So and we need to set a value for it. It's important to actually set a value. Value. Because the value is more like, so when it's selected, it's going to, so that's the, okay. No, before we actually set the value, let's set a name. Let's give it a name. Name cross interests. Name value. Let me just value equals value equals, what's the value? What's the this first interest? Let me check programming. Okay, but there is something interesting here that I want to do. So this label will probably just be just to show that this is what this are about. Okay, let me show us. Let's just see what this looks like first before I do like before I start this explanation. So the checkbox itself is just this thing that allows you to actually be able to check this. This is what the checkbox is. But in this case now we don't even know what this means because you can actually have multiple interests. Say for example, I have interest for programming. I have under interests type checkbox. Hmm, give it same name, but I don't want to go to explain what an array is. So let me see, the value here is swimming. That's another interest. Or let me say politics. So you just show to the user, you just show the checkbox. So at times you want to even give it a label. You want them to know what exactly is this first one, what exactly is the second one is. So I'm going to be adding a label for this particular, for each of these input box. And this I'm going to add it. So the label, so I'm putting a label after it, label. Okay, let's just do it this way at first. Just type the name. So this one is programming. So I want the next line, the next input to actually come to the new line. So I'm going to be putting break line, the break line behind this. So this one, so that the second input will actually call on the new line instead of it being on the same straight line. So the second one, I'm giving the label called politics. All right. So this label should, I'm putting behind it, so it should come after. So let's go to our page and see what it looks like. So this looks better, right? I believe we agree with me that this looks better. But there's actually one problem. So you can select this now. But there's one problem. If I click on this label, it doesn't act on it doesn't behave like I'm clicking on the label. So at times you want them to be able to actually click on, even if it's the programming they click on, you should select that is for this. You should select that it is for this, and you should select that it's for this. So how do we do that? Done. How do we do that? How do we do that? Select. We have two options. The first option is the first option is actually to bring this label, to bring everything inside the label. So something like this. So we have the label tag, and then the input, the checkbox is within it, and then we type our text behind it and close it to the label. All right, so let's see. Are we able to follow along? Okay. So like we have the inputs, and when we have label, so let's just see how does that. So with that, now I can click on the subject, I can click on the label, and it happens I can click anywhere. So it doesn't limit the user to only clicking on this button, because this can be, especially when it's on mobile, this can be a bit difficult for you to be able to click on just this small one to be able to select what you want. You want to be able to select anyone. And then the second one is this. The second one is this, which is even the preferred option, which is probably the preferred option in most cases. You see this a lot. Our label have an attribute called for. So you can define what exactly this label is meant for. That's an attribute called for. But the thing is, you need to have an ID here. So the value here is supposed to be the ID of what this guy is meant for. So for example, there's something called ID and class. I know I've mentioned ID, but I'm not sure you actually treat it properly then. So, but let's just do this example, then I will come back and explain what is an ID and what is class. So for example, I can give this guy an ID of, so the way I put my ID, so interests, politics, underscore politics. Because the name here is interest, and this particular one is politics. So this ID is what should be in the for item for the label for interest. So it knows that this particular label is meant for anywhere it sees this ID, which is this guy. Right? So let's go to the browser and see how that behaves. So after specifying the ID, now I can click on the label also, and it's understand that, oh, this label is also meant for this input. So if I click on the label or I click on the input, it reacts to it like that's meant what's meant for. Similar to, so both of these methods works fine, either wrapping everything within the label like this, or specifying the attribute, the four attributes for the label. So I give the input and ID, and then the ID is what I put for the in the for item. So this second method is actually the preferred option, is the preferred way, but both will work fine. So I introduced something here called ID. ID in HTML is used to specify something unique in a page, in an HTML page, in an HTML element. So ID is meant to use ID in HTML to be able to say, okay, for this particular element, I'm giving it an ID. It's like an ID card, it's supposed to be unique. So in this particular page, I should have only one ID with this name, interest politics. But there is a similar one which we call class, that I can actually have a class. I can give it a class name. So ID basically is for me to be able to recognize this item, right? But it should be unique. For me to be able to recognize any elements, for me to be able to recognize any item on an HTML page, but it should be unique. It should be only one. But I have the other one, which is, we have the other one, which is called class. So class is also meant to do, like, to be able to identify, but class doesn't have to be unique. So a lot of time, probably when we are doing HTML, CSS, we'll be targeting some things based on class. So most time the class should represent similar elements. So if I want to create a class, I can create a class for this checkbox interest. I can create a class and just name it interest, or interest. And let me just say I name it interest, and then I can apply it to all these other ones. So if there is anything I want to do that I want to happen on every input that is interest, I can just do that probably in my CSS. When we get CSS, we are going to, you see that a lot because the class we use a lot in CSS. But the major difference that we should actually just put in mind is that ID should be unique. Why ID should be unique? Why you can have multiple something for the class. So because I'm using this name, I hope it won't be confusing. Let me change the name of the class. Let me see, class interests checkbox. Okay. So, but for the sake of the label, we are using ID. We are giving this particular guy an ID, and then we are using it for this. So that is how checkbox works. So we can actually add more checkbox to these elements. Okay, probably this one, give it interest, finance. The ID should be unique, so I'm naming it ID. So you shouldn't forget to change the four elements with the ID of that. So that's just how checkbox works. And checkbox allow you to actually select multiple options. But the simply a similar attribute, a similar element in the HTML to checkbox is what we call is radio button. So we have radio button. A radio button basically means that it allows you to be able to select one of the option. So for example, I can have a radio button for gender, And what that does is it allows you to be able to actually select that male or female, and I can attach, I can bind the two together, that you can actually just select only one of the two, only one of the radio buttons. Right. So let's just do one. Let's just do an example. We are adding a new row to our table. The reason why we add a table is just to format, to make sure our elements are displayed properly, like our page is displayed properly. We notice that it's aligned, it's not scattered. That's why we are using HTML table in this case. So we add a TD, which is table. Oh, TD one. So let's give it a label. So for this guy, we are using gender. And for our gender, we are going to be having two radio buttons. So the radio button is defined this way. Let's define one and see how it looks, how it appears. So it's also input. Oh, sorry. Input type equals to radio. So let's give it a name. Let's give it a name. Let's call it gender. Value. Let's give the value of male. Let's close that. So again, the type here is radio. I can actually use small capital. Let me just use small letter. The type here is radio. Then we are giving it a name. So I'm going to explain the reason why the name is even important. The name is even more important in this radio button. I know that's serve multiple purpose here. And then I'm giving a value of male. So just like checkbox now, it doesn't even have it doesn't have a label yet. So we need to have a label. So let's just add a label to it. Let's give it an ID and give it a label. So ID. So we're using the second approach where you actually define the ID and you give it these have an ID, and then we fill it in our label form. So gender. Yeah. So now we have the male. We have the first radio button. So I'm going to okay for us to be able to do, I'm going to be removing the name for now. I will add it back later on. I'm going to be removing it for now so that we can see something. We can see an example. So let's ask the second input. Second input called second input radio, right? Second input, the second radio button. So the value should be female with an ID, gender. Okay, so we can go to the page and see what does it look like. Okay, we have the two radio button, the male and the female. But something interesting is this. So we're supposed to actually be able to select only one. The way everyone's supposed to work, it's supposed to be like if I select the male, if I select female, it's supposed to uncheck this one and check them because I can't actually uncheck, not like radio button where you can click twice and check and uncheck. So there's actually a value that is supposed to that's supposed to be an attribute that we're supposed to have in our radio button, which is the name. So for you to actually know which radio button falls in the same group. Let me go back. So I have here now, I have the first radio button, male and female here. I can actually have another set of radio button later on in my page. Probably I put a radio button. So probably I put a radio button to say, okay, maybe employment type seven, or student or not student or something like that. So I want to be able to actually identify it. So we're actually even going to be an example of that. So what you use in knowing the group of radio button that I showed that I group is the name. So the name is especially that it should actually have the same name. So if I have the same name of radio button in our page, so it knows that they're actually they are the same group. And then you make sure that they actually mutually it's exclusive now. When you click on one, you actually uncheck the other one. So the name should be the same thing for the two radio button. And now if you go in here, refresh our page. So we have male. So when I select female, I actually uncheck the first one. So now they are behaving like they are together. Initially before they are probably behaving like they are just separate. But giving it the name here allows it to actually be able to select one. And once you select the one, actually uncheck the first one. So now it's having only one value. So we can actually have another radio button in our page. For example, let's have a new, no, I'm not going to type this one again. Let's have a new row and say status. So probably my status will just want to be registered or not registered. So the file should be registered. I should delete it. Let me just the name here should be status. So the name for both of them should be status, right? ID, I'm going to change the ID. Status. Okay, so I decided to have another radio button, another set of radio button, but I'm giving it a different name from this one. So I just wanted to see like if the names are different, it's actually on the name, you use the name to know that this is a group and this is one group. So for example, you have the status, and let's go to the browser, refresh the page. So now I can click on these are still are still dependent as a group. This is also going to be a separate group depending on each other. So because the name, so you use the name, I just to see, they use the name to know that okay, this is one group, this is another group. So if I decide to actually go and change the name of everything, assume everything have the same name. I'm just trying to do this because these are for some example of like common mistake you end up saying like in your code at times. So if I have the same name, probably because I did copy and paste, I didn't remember to change the name. They are all going to behave like they are in the same group. So when I click on register, I actually uncheck the first one. So they're all behaving like they are in the same group. So they use the name to know that where the groups are. So it knows where it should stop. So if you end up mistakenly adding one that should not be there, you should just know some mistake that can actually happen. All right. So I'm just change it back. There's it. Okay, these are actually the two elements that I didn't talk about yesterday that we didn't cover yesterday. The radio and the checkbox. Right. And I'm trying to check if there's anything I've mixed out. Is there any question? Is there any question? Do you have any question? Hello.
So I think I don't have any question. But yesterday you also mentioned something like validation. So
Yeah, so I actually, because I wasn't even sure the validation from HTML, but when I tried to check the validation itself, the client side validation, the validation we can check during within the browser has to be done with JavaScript. And I'm not sure I want to start JavaScript right now. So probably when we get to JavaScript, we might have to do that. So I can actually intercept the call, like when I'm trying to do a submit with JavaScript and be able to actually do some validation at that point. But I can't do that. You can't do that with just the raw HTML. So the client side validation we have to be done when we get to JavaScript class. Yes,
all right, sir.
yes. Okay, so you asked me about this if to be able to impute mathematics formula yesterday, mathematical formula. I tried to check if there's actually any custom input type, any custom form that can actually do that, but I actually didn't see anyone. But the one what I could find is this. So there are some libraries that was created that can actually help you to format whatever you write and then convert it to like mathematical formula. Hello, can you see my screen?
Yes.
So there is like a library that I could see that okay, so if normal in the input field, you are going to be inputting something like this, the F bracket, just typical English. And then the library actually formatted to show this, this out. So this particular one is, what's the name again? What's the name of this library again? Let's see. Okay, I think it's Matt Jackson. Okay, so this library, the way it works is in our page you can actually add this is JavaScript, right? You can add a JavaScript file to it. You write a JavaScript file to it. And once you have this class, so you use this class actually to know that it actually converts what was imputed, what's this value to convert it to mathematical formula. And instead of showing it like this, is going to show the formula. But I can't find a way that you can actually type it like this, the way normal mathematics is. I can't find any way. I couldn't. Someone can build it. We can even decide to build that. But I'm not sure if it exists right now. I don't know if you understand. Did I answer that question? Wait.
Yes, you answer it, but that math jacks,
Yes,
how can we include it in our source code?
in our page. Okay, so we've been everything we've actually been working on is just pure HTML right now today. Sorry. But in our code, we can actually add some other files like CSS. When we get to CSS, we are going to probably be adding CSS to our file in a way like this. They are for CSS, it's been added like link to my page, link. Hey, I hope I still remember this. Show me to my shift like. Let me let me do an expo and quickly check my one of my codes. Link. Okay. This is a some probably a more complex. It's still the same typical HTML, probably, but it has more information. Like when I'm at CSS, I added it this way. But that math jacks that we also is a JavaScript. So JavaScript is added in this way to our page. Script. We are actually we're going to be doing that later on, doing this later on, but because we asked the question, that's why I'm going to be asking that, answering that. So we have scripts. CR SRC means the location, right? The location of the file. You remember you've used the SRC when we're actually doing image, and then within that we now specify where the image is. So this particular file, which is the JavaScript file, is saved in this server in this particular folder. So lib folder slash this. That's why we're having this long folder. If you're actually in the same folder, it will just be the name of the file. So which is actually located in the lib folder, then JavaScript, no, jQuery, sorry, DSR, and then this. So if sorry, if it was this math thing that I want to be input, there will probably be two ways. So they will give us, let's see the installation. So there's two ways to it. Oh, I'm only seeing one way. The one we here is for you to actually put the URL. So this one, instead of having the file in my own code, is going to be in their CDN. It's going to be more like in a remote location. So my page is going to fetch it from this particular location. But some website will allow you to download it and put it in your file if that's what you want. Where is it? I think this one doesn't have a downloadable format. It should have because this is one here. So it should have, there should be a place to download. I can't see it yet. But basically, this out just add it. They actually put a sample here. Scripts, scripts like what I put there. Let's leave the async for now. So, but the location, the SRC, that's where the file itself is located. So JavaScript can be put in the head. So here in this case, they actually recommend that you should put it in the head case in the head, but you can actually be in the head or put towards the end of the page. Like in my own page, in my own case, I put up my JavaScript at the end of the page. The reason why I didn't put JavaScript, I didn't put it at the beginning is because when your browser is rendering your page, it's trying to show your page, it loads from the top. So everything we've been doing are actually simple code, so they are not so complex. They don't take time to load, so we can't even see how it's been loaded. But our page gets loaded from the top, right? So if I put it in the beginning, it means that you have to actually go and load that JavaScript before it loads everything. And if the JavaScript is large, it might be slow. So at times you just, depending on the type of JavaScript, you might have to put it at the end. In most cases, you put it at the end, but some cases you have to put it at the beginning. But most websites like this one, they actually explain where you should include this, how you be able to actually include your page. So which is this way, which is just adding this script file here. Hello, does that answer the question? So we can actually even just do that and see how it does. Let's
All right.
just let's just let's just do that. Let's do that and see how it appears. So they recommend that we should put it in the head. I think because it has to do with the way the page is going to be formatted. But for this case, I am not going to, we're not going to be typing. We are going to be just be taking what is here because if we type, we need to display it. We won't be able to easily display it except using JavaScript. And we are not doing that yet. So let me just put this particular one in our page, this particular query with this. So I think this class, they've probably write in their code to be able to translate everything we have in this class to be able to translate it to this particular format. But let's see. Let's put at the end of our form. Let's put after the form. This is not part of our form. So save this, load our page. It didn't load the right. Okay. 404. Why? Is it out of service? Let's check. Why is it that their HTML page is not loaded? It's updated. The JavaScript file did not load, so I want to see why. Okay, so I have to go to the main website, and this the looks like this is the current one. So let's choose this one. Let's change what we imported earlier to the new one. So this requires me to impute polyfix first before imputing this other one. So let's just see. Hopefully this works. It's rendered, but this is not translated. So what happened? Something is wrong, but let's just see what happened. Why? Why is it not? Okay. Just give me a minute. Let's check. Oh, it looks like the format for the one I import is different. The way it's written, the way it writes is on. Let's see.
Um,
Yomi, or could it be that maybe you need to also import the jQuery library?
No, so what I notice is it looks like they've changed the way it's written here. So like the one I later on import is 3. So the one I was looking at here is 2. So I might need to, for it to actually show the way that one exactly expected to show, I might need to import that 2 or change the format to or change the format to the format of version 3. So for example, okay, so if you notice when I copy the one they have in version 3 now, it actually show properly, but the text
Okay.
is different.
Yeah.
The way they write the own text is different. I don't even know how to translate this one. The way they write it is a bit diff. I don't know how to translate this. What's this one? Slash E. I now shows A no equals to A no really? No equals to is this. I think the writing is a particular language. I think probably wrote latex or something there. I don't know latex, but I think version 2. Let's try the version 2. I think the version 2 should display like both of them are actually displaying. They are written in this format. I don't want. Okay. Okay. So for this one, so instead of the first one, let's use this particular one. I'm a bit confused. How does it translate this? Instead of the version 3, so I'm removing both the polyfix and version 3, and I'm going to be using just this. This is supposed to be version 2, but I can't see any version number in the JavaScript. I'm not seeing any version number here, but this one shows like you actually translate a normal text just with this angle. It translates to mathematical formula instead of this complicated one. So I don't know what they call this one actually. It's apostrophe, but not the typical apostrophe. It's the one that is above, that is before one. That's before one. That's what we have here. So let's see, what does this show? It doesn't interpret it properly. It's not loading. I guess this old format is no longer available because I'm getting error 404, which means not found. To use this library now, one needs to understand this complex. I think the only one that is available is version 1. So this may not be the best scenario. Sure. This is probably not the best library. I think it will probably have a better way of displaying, but I just don't. Oh, it's have now. This is version 3. Okay, I'm supposed to load inputs. I'm supposed to load these two files. I'm supposed to load this guy. That's why. I'm supposed to load this JavaScript complexity. That's why. So let's try this. Then it allows me to enter. I think this, okay, this is from what you have here already. Okay, so it was expecting me to write, where is it? I was expecting it to import some, I don't know, should I call it a library or some modules? These are like modules. It's still JavaScript, yeah. The whole conversion here that is happening here is actually JavaScript. So I think the main purpose of trying to do this is actually trying to see like, is it possible? Can we convert? Can we make our write a typical mathematics and then it's display like a formula just like this that happened there, and then it's going to display it something like this. Hello, Femi.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. It's a lot of work.
So, no, so it's just getting hands on it. I've never used this before, and I've never actually have a reason to write mathematical formula in my code or in my website before. So I have to just try to look for something. So there is always probably a library to do most things that I want to do, although some might not be free.
Mm.
Some might not be free, but and then if there's none, then someone will probably create one, or we can also create it by ourselves if you know how to go about it. Okay. So what else do we have? What do we have before we call it a day? Because this is actually where we want to stop on HTML. So I think there are actually some resource. The main resource I actually use while learning is HTML. For HTML now is W3 School. W3 School. So I'm going to be dropping do I have it? Okay, I think I have it. I still find it very interesting that W3 School, the HTML class in W3 School is still very nice actually to actually practice, to learn. So one thing they have is they actually have a place for you to practice. Once you're learning something, probably I'm reading something out, I can always click on the practice and which open a page for me and I can try it and run it and see the effects. Say I decide to try. So they have a platform for you to be able to actually try multiple things and then they put some points to you. So I'm going to be recommending this as an additional reference. Let me drop it in the chat. So in fact, it has almost everything you need on that HTML. For HTML, I always recommend W3 School. So you can practice a lot and see the results. So that's about the reference I'm going to recommend. Just W3 School. I don't know. Latif, do you have any other special reference, any reference that you actually, any other favorite reference that you have for HTML? Probably
Um,
websites.
I I mean, I probably have a couple, but maybe during the CSS class, I'll be sharing more links
Okay.
to other sites. You can also use maybe the developer.mozilla.org website, for example. Let me paste it in the
Okay.
chat.
I don't know if it's S. I think there should be S. Okay.
So this one is mostly just, you can use it as a reference because they don't like give you the playground, but there's a lot of details in the website when you look for it.
Yes, yes, yes. So let me just drop this. Okay. Oh, you've already dropped it. The chat. Okay. Yes. That looks interesting. Okay. Do you have any other question? Any other questions concerning um before we call it a day for today? Okay, this for color. Oh yes. Oh, I don't know this one before. Oh, okay. I can't click on it. Okay, let me just close this. I have a net blocker. Okay, all right. So I think we can actually call it a day for today. Um, we we are going to move into CSS after this class. Like our next class, we are going to move into CSS for that. So if you have any question, we can always drop it in the other chat group that we created that we can actually interact with. We like to actually